everyone. Welcome to Hong Kong Horse Racing. Jason Richardson, Clint Hutchison, the Hall of Famer in RSI, analysing what is going to be an amazing weekend of racing at Sha Tin on Sunday. Hutchbuster, great to see you. There's a real pep in your step because this card is elite.
Yeah, can't wait for it. And every single one of the three Group 1s has its own element of brilliance about it, I think. Real spectacle there on the weekend. The support card is fantastic. Great horses, top-line jockeys, Sha Tin on the weekend. It's a Sunday as well. We love that here, and we'll be kicking back and hopefully backing plenty of winners.
Golden 60 versus California Spangle RSI. There's a lot to be excited about. That's just one of the Group 1 head-to-heads. It should be a beauty.
It'll be a great day's racing. Fantastic. But first of all, Richo, I'm just going to tell you, I watched the stall gift on Monday, I think it was, and you're safe with that, your job, mate. I think his name was Harrison Kerr. I had a look at him. Hasn't got your looks or your ability speaking after the win. So if anyone doesn't know, Richo won the stall gift. I think it was 93 or 96.
Yeah, correct, my friend. A long time ago.
And he was very impressive. And in those days, he actually had hair. He was spiky. And you were like, oh, lightning bolt, mate. You were impressive. But you don't worry about your jobs because this bloke's not in your class.
Oh,
Shane, one of our colleagues, Matthew Cambo, loves to say to Richo, he gave himself a run for about 2 years to get off that handicap mark for that race.
100% not true, Shane. I ran that
but
fast.
But there weren't blokes in
my
front
hair
of you,
slid
Richo.
off.
who had more of a handicap. You ran them down pretty fast.
Mate, went past them, gave them windburn.
I know. How come you didn't get to the Olympics?
Well, I was in the squad and I wasn't good enough. That's the reason why. I tried bloody hard. Thanks for bringing that up. 5 years dedicating my life to it. Not good enough.
Well, you were very close, Rich.
But that doesn't matter.
Closer than
as
most.
long as you put everything into it. It doesn't matter whether you don't succeed.
Exactly. It's just a bit harder when your wife does succeed. She went to 2 Olympics, so she rubs that into me. Hey, we've got a huge show coming up. We're going to discuss some big news coming out of the week of racing in Hong Kong. Of course, we'll be concentrating on the Genius rides and also the slaughters, especially after our special guest last week said that most of the jockeys are sitting around wondering whether or not they make their way into the Genius or slaughter category. Shane Dye's got them all petrified. A very special guest. The one and only Zac Purton will be joining us in the show. So we are just getting ready for what's going to be an amazing weekend of racing. But first, let's burst out of the gate. And Hutch, I'll start with you. A big fine for a jockey, 120,000 Hong Kong dollars.
Yeah, it is a big fine, isn't it? Some of these fines that the jockeys are getting with their careless riding, I mean, it's associated with their earnings, and as a point of reference, and Shane will be a lot better at assessing this than I will, but Son of McPhee's in the orange cap, purple colours sort of sweeping around them at the moment. Now, he does shift in late and he causes some pretty significant interference to a couple of runners, but they don't miss them in the pocket up there, Shane. When they do something wrong, they cop a hefty fine, and it wasn't a huge shift from Alexi there.
It was nothing, Clint. He shouldn't have been fined that. But it goes back to how many suspensions you had in your fines, and then it goes back to your earnings and how much. If you actually have a look at it again, the original shift I felt was from the inside horse to the horse that got checked just a little bit, but then he finished him off, but it wasn't bad. He's pretty hard done by if he got fined 120,000 for that.
So about 20,000 Aussie. To put it into context, Nashville Willer got 40,000 reduced down to 30,000 for whip overuse on Think It Over. Keep in mind that was the 21st time that Nashville Willer had been fined for whip overuse in the last 2 years.
And a big race.
And it was a Group 1 race worth $4 million.
Richo, I've been saying for years now, the whip rules in Australia are a joke. They were a joke when they come in, they still are. And until they start rubbing horses, disqualifying them for overuse of the whip, it's just a joke. You might as well not have it because, if I'm in a golden slipper and I'm going to win it or get beat, I'm going to use the stick. It's as simple as that. They can fine me 50,000 and then I'll go to the owner and say, mate, I'm entitled to $1 million. Your horse is now worth 30, 40, 50 million. If I get beat, it's worth nowhere near as much. So they'll never bring it in disqualification because they should by now. And they just, I don't know, they turn a blind eye to it.
Well, it is a rule, so they need to enforce it. You're right, but that's a separate topic that we might throw around one day, because if it is a rule, you need to enforce it, but they need to quantify what a strike of the crop is equivalent to in distance-wise, and then make an arbitrary allocation that way. And if you do it, if they say it's half a length and you do it 10 more times than you're required.
The whole rule's messy anyway.
Of course it is.
You can hit them as many times as you want late in the race, which is when everyone's watching anyway, and then certain amount. I mean, who's counting? Which jockeys are counting how many times they've hit or persuaded a horse in the run to a line? But anyway, getting back to this interference, it's still a hefty fine, isn't it? I mean, for anybody, 120,000 Hong Kong dollars, 20,000 Aussie. It's a hefty fine, but that's the way it goes up there.
Hey, Shane, I love promoting you. What your insight last week on Campione was fascinating, and the market couldn't work out which side of the fence they were on. Would he handle the synthetic track or not? Handle it, he did, and what a reward you got price-wise.
Yeah, I actually had him favour until Luke opened his mouth and said he wouldn't handle it last week. But he's just electrifying the horse. He's going to Class 1 very quickly. I've been very impressed by him because his trials before his first run weren't that good, and he's just kept improving. But they bet $12 him he paid on the tote, I think, which was just ridiculous. And as I keep saying here, gate 12 is as good as gold, because you can just work or way across without any kickback. And not only that, you're out of trouble and you're not being pressured. So I think always gate 12 is the best gate. And every year statistics says that on the sand.
Isn't it interesting? We had a lot of social media commentary of people who have been tuning into our vodcast and talking about the fact that Shane said that outside gate coming across and Campione. Could you believe the price?
Well, I found him a hard one to have because I wasn't sure about him on the surface. But I mean, in retrospect, it's easy, isn't it? But Shane's right. I mean, he's been electrifying in his performances. And the wide gate, I think the key is the kickback, what Shane mentioned. Low draws are okay, but you've got to bounce well.
You've got to push forward.
And hold that spot. And what the wide draws allow you to do, if you step a little bit slowly, as Shane sort of implied, you can work your way across in your own time and not get that kickback or not be subject to being held up, because it is a real momentum track, as we know, the dirt or the all-weather. And that's why we see in America, Shane, a lot of the American riders covering ground doesn't have the penalty that it does on the turf. They're completely different races, and it's more about flow. It's more about keeping them in their rhythm. And the ground, whilst it's still a factor, it's not probably as much as a factor as we see on the turf.
Yeah. Hong Kong Jockey Club prize money next season, Shane. By gee, that looks a great increase.
Up about 11.5%. They do it regularly, and it's just getting better and bigger. They're addressing the staying races or the mile up races. It's fantastic for everyone. Here's the increases. Some big increases. So, it's very hard to buy horses now to come to Hong Kong because they're overpriced in Australia or New Zealand. They're just wanting so much because the prize money's so good in Australia. So they're trying to counter that now by saying we're upping our prize money. Not only that, Jason, there's actually bonuses if horses win races of $1 million up to $2 million. So, it all depends what type of horse you buy for a bonus. But it's fantastic, isn't it, Clint?
Yeah, it is. And it's a good time to be riding or training there. I mean, some of the percentages, it's a little different in Hong Kong. I mean, a winning jockey for a winning ride gets a 10% or thereabouts percentage of the prize money. The trainer the same, and the stable actually get a decent chunk as well. But that's enormous money, and they've really concentrated. It's an interesting strategic move, I suppose, from the club that they've really made it top heavy. They'll obviously want owners to go out and buy, very good horses. So they're rewarding those that bring in the best. But it's enormous money. I think there's a lot up for grabs, and we might see, I don't know, Shane, with that sort of money in some of those big races there, that's it's already attractive for, I suppose, horses from overseas to go and tackle those big Group 1s at different times of the year. But this is even more of an enticement.
As long as we get the COVID thing right.
Yeah,
up there.
100%.
Yeah. See, Jace, I always have this argument people say about what James McDonald's done and what he's earning in Australia. I would say Zac Purton and Joe Moreira would earn at least 3 times more than James at the end of the year. At least. Blake Shinn would be on par to what James earns. because you're getting 10%, you're paying only 10% tax, which is nothing. In Australia, you're paying 48% tax and you're only getting 5%. So you're going to save and make a lot more money in Hong Kong riding than you ever can in Australia. And I've been the best in both, so I would know.
Well, it's interesting. If we just do some sums, so Blake Shinn is an interesting point because that's another topic. Due to the strict COVID protocols, and Hong Kong Jockey Club are trying to do the right thing by racing in Hong Kong. So no knock at all about them, but this tight protocol means that the jockeys are locked down. It's fine if you've got a family like Zac has, but if you're on your own like Blake Shinn, then emotionally and mentally you are not enjoying a great life at the moment. We spoke to Luke Curry about exactly that. So disappointing news in regards to the fact that Blake will be coming back, because I thought he just started to make his...
He's just starting to get a bit of momentum. Yeah, look, things might change. Perhaps he comes home, he freshens up, gets a bit of normality in his life. Maybe he'll look to go back, this time next year, maybe in 6 months or 8 months' time. It would be extremely hard. And speaking to a few different riders, and maybe Zac can give us his opinion on it. I know he's been pretty vocal as well. It's been tough for them. They've been locked up. And Zac even had an issue in terms of some of the... he needed some work done with his injuries.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we could bring that up, but it has been very tough.
They sweep for home now. Veandercross has come very wide. Veandercross answering the urgings of Shane Dye. Mannerism coming at him. Mannerism has got it.
Daring tactics by Shane Dye. He's got Octagonal in full flight on the corner. Bold tactics by Shane Dye are going to pay off, and he pinches the Chipping Norton.
Shane Dye analyses all the rides during the week of racing in Hong Kong. He gives a genius for a great ride, a slaughter for one where the jockey got it a little wrong. We like to call it the Octagonal Veandercross, where RS Dye nailed one, probably got it wrong in the second. Shane, take us away. Let's start at a positive. Genius ride.
Blake Shinn on this horse here last week, Jazz Steed from gate 12 on
Jazz
the dirt.
Angel.
Just gave it a perfect ride. You'll see him here in the green colours. Oh, Jazz Angel, I should say. I always get these horses wrong. And he comes out. He doesn't push him. He doesn't pull him back. He keeps him in the clear, out of trouble. And this is why these horses win on the dirt from gate 12 all the time. Now, you just watch up here. He squats in 3 wide. He's had no kick back. He hasn't pulled him back. He's looking. He comes in just up here, and now he's going to be 3 wide by the turn, which is as good as gold there. If once you roll it on, he actually gets to one off the fence around the bend, tracking up with cover. It's just the perfect spot, the perfect ride. He's wasted no energy. The horse has done nothing this whole race, and he comes out at the top of the straight, and he quickens to win. It's the perfect dirt ride. It was fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, I liked the ride, and our subscribers liked it as well. Of course, we made him a play on the day, and it was a well executed ride from Blake. A few of the I think Australian riders in general probably ride the dirt a little bit too much like the turf, and I think that's their downfall. I think you've got to sometimes ride them a little bit ugly, and that was a nice ride, whichever way you looked at it from Blake. And that wide barriers, as Shane said, was a real positive.
That was picture perfect, Shane. Who got one ride wrong?
Derek Leung on Mission Bravo. The horse ran last. It probably couldn't win, even though. Watch him here. He stumbles out of the gates, gate 11. And I know he's a leader, but once that happens, you've got to bite the bullet and say, right, this has happened. Come back now. He's pushing to go forward. What hope have you got from there to go forward on the dirt? You just got none. Do something different.
Take
Show
your medicine.
initiative. Once something happens, change. Now, he pushed on. He's 4 wide. He's 3 wide, pushing on into the back. Now, this horse had won its last 2 starts. He couldn't win after 30 metres. Mars will run last. Well, he does run last, but he was always going to. Watch, he presses on here in a fast run race. He just should have. Stewards understand, right, if things go wrong. You don't have to ride to the instructions of trainers if something goes wrong. So he stops and runs last, and he can never get to the fence. He's leading 3 wide. Just forget he went round. Next start, he'll be better odds, a good gate, and he'll run well again.
And he copped the backwash of that interference that we mentioned but he was a beaten horse at that stage and couldn't hold his spot. Shane, what do you tell a young rider like Derek Long? Is that what you say? Did you say, Derek, if that happens, let's forget the instructions, throw them out of the window and just ride the race as it pans out. I mean, what
Well,
would you?
see, I had this talk to Felix Kutsi one day because he teaches the kids in Hong Kong. Well, he was. I don't know whether he still is. He was doing a great job. But I said one day there was a bloke who missed the start, and I said, Felix, why don't you teach these kids when something goes wrong to ride them back? And he goes, oh, but the trainers want them up there and they've got to do what they're told, you know? But you don't, right? I suppose I never did. Once you're out there, it's a different ball game. It's in your court, but they've got to learn that if something goes wrong in a race, do not follow instructions, go to another plan, because that horse couldn't win after 100 metres, 50 metres he couldn't win pushing hard. And he should have known that.
I understand why they do it as well, and Shane is aware of it. Sometimes it's perception with owners, etc. They think, oh, why is he not gone forward today? They don't. But once you can explain to them, the horse stumbled out of the gates, etc.
Which was obvious for everyone to see.
Obvious what happened. Yeah. But sometimes some people see it in black and white.
Actually, there was another one similar to that, but not out of the gates on Wednesday night. Joe on Mythine. He was 3 wide down the back and pressed on in what was going to be a fast run race, and they took him in for quite a while over it. And, of course, his horse stopped and ran last. And that happens regularly when you're pushing on like that mid-race.
I can remember David Hayes saying one of the rules of Lindsay Park Racing, because they were so set on their rules, is if you miss the kick as a jockey, do not hunt the horse up. Just let him gather his feet, he or her, let him gather his feet, and then just change, go to plan B. But don't ever hunt up. Whereas Derek Leung was like, I've been told to go forward, I'm going to hunt up.
It really works out. I know Shane's obviously a big advocate of that. And you don't, if you miss it, you've got to just take your medicine, Shane.
Of course you do. And many horses win races missing starts. It happens all the time because they get a soft run back in a fast run race or something, but not many win it when they miss the start and they dig like anything to be up there.
Let's grab your pen and paper. Let's get into school, Hong Kong Racing School. Time to learn some lessons in the Hong Kong Racing School. I jump onto Hong Kong Jockey Club website and I click on the link to track work under the race card tab. Hutch, how do I read and watch track work? Educate me on the best way that you like to. What are you looking for in particular?
Well, what's good is, and there's a QR code there as well that you can sort of scan off your phone. I mean, we don't get this opportunity in other places in the world really to watch a lot of track work, but all of the track work in Hong Kong's filmed, it's clocked, and you get to visually see. So you get to intimately know when some horses are working better than they might at different times of the year. They don't always work in a similar manner. Some do, some don't, but the majority of them will have sort of little peaks and troughs. So the good thing is you get to access to this vision and the times, which are all clocked. It's all put down there, Shane, and it's just another tool that you can use, I suppose, to just tick off where you think a horse's preparation. I know early on the show you mentioned horse was 63 days between runs, or we were talking off air a moment ago about another horse had a bit of a gap. But it's a good opportunity to go and have a look at a horse and just see how he's going for yourself, really.
Correct. There's no doubt. It's very good. I like watching their actions. I'm big on actions because you'll see a horse that runs very ordinary one day when you think he's going to run well, and you watch the race and you see his action right. So you go to the vet report and the vets have found nothing wrong with him. But I know from being a jockey, and Zac's coming up, he'll verify this. A lot of times you'll ride a horse and you know it's got a problem and the vet cannot find the problem. So then I'll go and watch its track work and see how its action is. Now, if its action's all right in track work, I'm happy to back it next start because I think in my own mind, even though the vets found nothing wrong with it, it had a problem in its last run. And that's the advantage I have. Not all vets can pick up problems with horses. It's just like human beings with doctors. They can't always pick up a problem with you. But it's very good to watch. It's there, times, everything, and it helps you.
And how important is the time, Shane, when you're analysing? You're looking more at the way that they're moving as opposed to what time they're running?
Definitely. Race day, it's different because times are very important for the last 400, what they run. But track work, it's a waste of time sometimes because John Sizer's horses, they all only go 3/4 pace. Actually, none of them ever gallop fully track work. So their times are always going to be slow. And not everyone, it's not like 30 years ago where they used to gallop their horses hard. Now they actually don't gallop their horses hard like they used to.
And that one tool, the trial times are also there. What I will use is a rough guide, just the trial, the shape of how the pace will surf there. If you see that they're going slow and they gradually build and a horse makes ground and they might run home in 22.5, you think it didn't look that good of a trial, but it was actually a better piece of work. Those are just little things that you look at, but all that information's there and you can take from it what you want.
Great insight. Jump on the Hong Kong Jockey Club website. All that information is there. You've learnt now how to access it. So access it and analyse away, and you can obviously try to find a winner. Hey, let's add some significant star power to our show. Biggest star in Hong Kong racing is Zac Purton. Zac versus Joe is a battle of all battles in Hong Kong racing. We're building up to 3 huge Group 1s, and Zac's been great enough to jump on the line. Zac, as always, mate, great to chat to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Richo. Good to be back on the show, mate.
Fantastic to have you, mate. Hey, before we get into previewing the 3 Group 1s, I was sad to hear about Blake Shinn coming home, that locked away is... just proven too tough mentally. What was your reaction to the news?
I must admit I was a little bit surprised. He's put in the hard work over the seasons he's been here and he's just started to get a few opportunities. So I thought he was looking forward to what was possibly going to be ahead for him. And it was only a few weeks ago I was talking to him in the jockey's room about the house he had in Sydney and how he was going to develop it and the DA plans he was going to get and whatnot else. And, in a short period of time, he changed his mind. So something obviously swayed him to do that. And, it has been hard here for us being in lockdown. People outside, it's hard to fully grasp it. But, we've been living this for 2.5 years now, on and off, through different types of restrictions. But the most recent ones were really, really tough. And, he's here on his own. I get to come home to my family. So that's a little bit different. I've been here for such a long period of time. I'm probably a little bit more comfortable, whereas he's at home staring at the walls on his own. At the end of the day, you got to be happy. And if he's not happy, he's got to go home.
Yeah. And Zac, you just mentioned how tough it's been. I mean, even we're reading something recently online about these restrictions and how it sort of thwarted some of your recovery. But you had that bad fall back in December. Can you just, for our listeners, run us through a little bit more on what's transpired there and how it's transgressing now in terms of your rehab, etc.?
Yeah, well, unfortunately for me, as we know, I had that fall in December and, I had fractures sort of all over my body, which needed time to heal. And by the time I come back and was looking to ride again, we were having like 20, 30, 40,000 cases a day. And the Jockey Club had us in this really strict bubble where we basically weren't allowed to go past the front gate. As Shane knows, and you do, Clint, we live on the course here at Sha Tin and there's a chicken wire fence all the way up around. It's like being in a prison yard and we weren't allowed out the front gate. So that made it really hard for me to be able to go out and seek the treatments that I needed. And initially I couldn't do that because I had to wait for the bones to heal. But once they healed, I needed some chiropractic treatment and we've got a physio here on course, but there's only so much he can do. I needed some other things as well. But now that the restrictions are being eased and they're going to allow us to go out. I've been up at hospital during the week getting medicated, getting some treatment. I start shockwave treatment next week. I see the chiropractor this afternoon. We've got a sports masseuse coming in now. We've got the physio. I'm doing a few other things, some ice therapy and things like that. So I feel like now, and only now, I can just start to get back into the shape that I need to be. It's been frustrating. It's been hard. But, it is what it is. Unfortunately, we had a severe wave of COVID come through and the club had to take those measures at the time. But for someone like me that was looking to get back into shape, it certainly didn't make it easy.
Just one final one on the COVID, and then we'll get into the Group 1 racing. Zac Purton, our very special guest. So that's the restrictions for you, but for your family, are they able to live any sort of normal life, or that's just a reality of life in Hong Kong at the moment?
No, so the restrictions we were under are different to the ones for the normal everyday person within the population. They were still able to go out and live their life and do what they wanted to do. Restaurants were closed for dinner. You could have 2 people at a table for lunch. Nightclubs, sporting venues, beaches, all those things were closed, but people were still allowed to go out to the supermarket, go to work if they wanted to. There was nothing to stop them from going out, but the jockey club went above and beyond what the government required, and to keep us in our bubble and keep us safe, we were getting COVID tested every day. Even though we weren't leaving the racecourse, we're only allowed to leave on a Wednesday night to go to Happy Valley, so we'd go straight there and come straight back. And then our families were asked to try and abide by those restrictions as well, as were our armors or maids, whatever you want to call them. They were compensated to stay within our bubble, and the kids weren't going to school either. Schools were closed; they were homeschooling. So we were basically in like a jail-like setup, and that's been our life for a number of months now.
Oh, it's tough, mate. But Tess relationship, he's got a big smile on his face.
You say it's tough, it's all right. If he had a bit more time to go home and check his bank balance every day, and Zac, I'm sure that's been growing quite handsomely on another day. How are you feeling going ahead to this weekend? It's a great weekend of racing, and how's the body feeling, and how's the mind feeling going ahead to the weekend?
It's getting better every day. I had a bad migraine this week. On Wednesday night, my head was pumping. I had a shocking night. I was in all the wrong spots, following all the wrong horses, and the tempo was not suiting any of the horses I was on, and just had a night to forget. So I've still got a headache from that. Actually, I need to take.
Happened in the first race, Zac.
Yeah, I know.
Speed Force.
Yeah, I know. But don't stop there, Shane. There was a number of them. But
Zac, maybe you needed the white gloves. Shane, those white gloves that you mentioned last time that Shane had. We'll get Shane to send up a pair.
And those skinny pants that he used to wear so he could see his baggage hanging out.
That's all
I used to set the trend back in the day.
I did.
But, I'm looking forward to the weekend. It's a big week on our calendar. I got a couple of handy rides there, so hopefully my horses can turn up well.
Let's start, mate, with that Champions Mile, Shane. How do you see Golden 60 versus California Spangle? We know that you love to give some advice to jockeys. RS Die first. How does Zac win this race?
Oh, Zac's got the perfect gate because there's only, I better put my glasses on. He's got gate 5, which is perfect because the leader could be healthy, happy from gate 4. So that means that if he leads, he sits out of him. But if he's not going to his tempo, Zac just eases across to lead. The other one with pace is Mighty Giant from gate 8, but he can miss the start, and he has been. So I don't know what they'll do on him, but he could push forward. So you actually, no instructions. You're just going to work it out 100 metres after the race, aren't you, Zac?
Well, I would have liked to have drawn inside Healthy Happy because that would have just allowed me to get there comfortably and control it the way I want to control it. The problem I might have is if they try and hold the lead on Healthy Happy, and as you've just mentioned, sometimes you've got to bite the bullet and sit outside the leader. But Tony Cruz has been very clear in his instructions during the week and in the press that my horse must lead and must find the fence. So if Healthy Happy does, because you've ridden for Tony Cruz before, you know him as well as I do. When he says you got to do something, you do it. And he likes his horses leading. This horse has led every start it's had in its career, and he doesn't want to change anything. And, it's just as simple as that. So, now I'll be dictated to by Blake Shinn on my inside. If he continues to kick up on my inside, he's going to make me work. I have no option but to continue to go on with it. So I would have preferred to have drawn inside that horse.
Just on that, so if Blake does keep kicking up and you sense as one of the best jockeys in the world, if you sense you're going too quick, do you have the option to pull out of that speed battle, or you're saying that the trainer's saying you've got to keep going forward?
Yeah, so Hong Kong's a different place, Richo, and you got to understand the way that the owners think here, the way that the media interprets things. For instance, a couple of seasons ago, I was on a horse called Beauty Generation. Now, we all know Beauty Generation well. He used to lead every start. He used to get out. He used to bowl along. Tony Cruz had a horse one day called Car-Ying Star, and he told his jockey that horse had to lead. So we ended up going 7-8 lengths in front of the rest of the field. I think we broke 22 seconds for that first to middle quarter because he continued to put the pressure on me. Now, the start before, I'd handed up on Beauty Generation because Car-Ying Star put the acid to me, and my owners were not happy. My connections were not happy. They said, my horse has to lead. Don't give up the lead. So I had to continue to press to hold the front. And that's the situation we're in. Unfortunately, sometimes the jockey's hands are tied.
But how do you know this horse won't be better taking a sit?
I don't know that, Shane, and I agree with you. Maybe he will be better taking a sit. Maybe one day in a barrier trial we can do that. Maybe in a run, in a race one day you have no choice and you have to do that.
Because he does quicken.
He does. I'm not disagreeing with you, and I think he'll be adaptable. He's a very smart horse. He's a very intelligent horse, and I think he can adapt. But they're my instructions, and so I sort of do what I'm told.
Yeah. In terms of, it'll be interesting how the track plays as well. We haven't brought that up. The rail wasn't a great spot to be in the straight last year at this meeting on the A. But, of course, California Spangle, you can work your way off that, Zac, anyway. But irrespective of that, as a horse, Zac, I mean, you must have been just really buoyed with that Derby run. It was a huge effort. You got pressured in the lead. He was gallant. He didn't want to lie down. And he looks pretty special. I mean, you can see you angling off the fence here, of course, in the Derby later in the day. And he just... I couldn't believe what a good run. I could believe what a good run it was, but all it did was really enhance his performances. With
brilliant horse.
How gallant he was.
Yeah, he's a special horse. He's got X factor. I love him, and like I said, he's an intelligent horse. He's really, really clever. And first couple of starts in a race here in Hong Kong as a Griffin, Neil Callan rode him, and he missed the start both times by a length and a half or 2 lengths, and then Neil bounced all over his back and drove him to the front and run 2 class records. Now, horses just don't miss the start like he was doing, and not just go on to win, but to run 2 class records. And he come back this season, and I got on him at the start of the season, and it took me 1 barrier trial to get the horse to jump on terms with the other horses. And now look at him. He's the first out of the gates. He just flies. He knows what he's doing. So he picks things up really quickly, and that's why he will probably be adaptable. He'll be able to change his racing pattern in time. But at the moment, Tony Cruz is fairly certain on the way he wants him ridden. But that Derby effort was phenomenal. What people don't understand is there was a really strong headwind into our faces in the straight that day. So when I jumped out of the gates and I had to press him from a wide gate to get across, not only did I have to use him more than I wanted to use him, and this is on a horse that we weren't sure was going to be able to run the distance, so I had to push him into the wind. I then get around the corner into the back straight. I have one horse roll up on my outside, which was fine. Ruin Meyer, he was 3 wide at the time. He had to try and get a position. But then at the half mile, Vincent Ho pulled out from the 1 out, 1 back position. He was in a perfect spot in a race that was being run inside a standard. There was no need for him to do it. He then starts attacking me half mile from home. And all it did was soften my Blake up around the corner. If I had been able to get that breather for another 400 metres, the other Romantic Warrior wouldn't have beat me. I then had to pull him away from the fence in the straight to get to the better ground. He's never done that before. He's only ever been on the fence. He got lost. He got his head up. He got off balance. He didn't know where he was going. He got challenged by Money Catcher. He fought him off, and then one horse just got him late. It was an amazing performance.
You're taking on a champion, though, but you've spoken very highly about California Spangle. What's your feeling? I know you like to be the underdog, so you're in the right spot because you're taking on the champion. You're beating him with Waikuku this season. But I'd sense that you feel that you might have the horse that could potentially cause an upset here.
Yeah, if there's one horse that's going to cause the upset in the race, it's my guy. But you look at the international ratings, my guy's rated 108, Golden 60's rated 125. So the ratings say that clearly I shouldn't be able to get near him. But I don't think the ratings are quite yet correct because although Golden 60's got an established rating, because we've seen him over a long period of time now and he's an older horse, my guy's still coming up through the class system, through the rating himself, and he hasn't raced against the big boys yet, so they can't handicap him correctly. After this weekend, they'll be able to handicap him correctly, and his handicap, no doubt, is going to be raised quite a bit more significantly than what it is at the moment. But it just depends how the races run. The first 400 metres is going to be crucial to my horse's chances.
And we're going to test that Derby form, of course, in the QET Cup as well. So Romantic Warrior, the Derby winner, up against Russian Emperor. Zac's on cheerful days. Shane, a quick thought about this race before we ask Zac?
2-horse race. Russian Empire against Romantic Warrior. What's your opinion, Zac? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And if I had my choice, I think I'd go with Romantic Warrior.
Yeah.
I think although Russian Emperor's a very good horse, he pulled up a little bit sore from his last run. And his horse that's had a lot of problems throughout his career. And the hard tracks here have not always suited him. When he won the Gold Cup, we had an amazing amount of rain for the 5 days leading up to it. The tracks would have been basically flooded and it was waterlogged. And I think that really suited him. There's no doubt he's a good horse, but I just think Romantic Warrior has got more tactical versatility. He's drawn well. He's a horse on the way up. Once again, we don't know how good he is either.
Well, gate 4, he's just going to get the perfect run behind reliable team and the other leader, which always goes for Canyon Star. They'll both go forward, so he's just going to squat him behind. And the funny thing about it is Russian Empire's drawn outside of him, so he'll probably have to come back behind him. Otherwise, he'll probably be 3 wide. Wouldn't you agree, Zac?
I think you've summed that up well, Shane.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if Zac's a bit more positive, cheerful days. Zac, he wasn't a bad run the other day. He ran into a little bit of trouble late in the race. It was a lot better than it looks sort of on paper, cheerful days. And one thing he's really improved this season. I know he's got to step up again, but I've got him 3rd pick in the race actually, and I don't think he'll be disgraced here.
Clint, you said he's improved. He's gone from 61 to 103. That's one of the biggest jumps I've ever seen. He's been amazing this season.
For a horse that was a bit reluctant to hit the front last season as well.
I know.
Yeah.
He had many chances last year and won once out of about bloody 12 starts. This season he's won what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 races and been impressive winning them.
But I think the barrier gives you a lot better. I mean, it's a nice draw for you too, Zac. Just there going over the trip. You can hopefully, not be quite as far back, I would imagine. What's your take on him?
He's a horse that you need to get into his own rhythm and get him happy. I won't be bustling him just to take up a position. I'll let him come out of the gates and let him tell me where he wants to be. But like you said, his last run was a little bit better than it looked. And that's been the key to him this season. Last season, they were trying to ride him on pace a little bit, and he was really aggressive in the mornings. He's a really big, strong horse. He was nearly a bolter. We couldn't hold him. He would charge, and he'd run, 26, 23. With the jockeys hanging off him in the mornings, whereas now he's a completely different horse. He's really relaxed. He'll go plot around in 32, 28 if you let him. And that's why he's reversed his form and turned into the horse that he has. So I don't want to fire him up. I don't want to get him on the bit. I don't want to give him that signal. He's going to 2,000 metres for the first time. So the important thing is just to get him to relax, get him happy, try and use his turn of foot at the end.
And what about the Group 1 sprint, Zac? You're on board. Sight Success, are you a chance?
Yeah, I think I am. He's another horse that's improved a lot in a very short period of time. It wasn't that long ago he was going around at Happy Valley, and I was actually waiting for him to drop down into a Class 4 race. I think he got down to a rating of 62, and then he managed to win, and he's just gone up through the ratings since then. He's a horse in a purple patch of form. He's full of confidence. He was able to win nicely, albeit with a lightweight 2 starts back. Last start, in the set weight with penalty conditions of the race, he was very close again and only beaten by Wellington. He's not far off. He's got the right gait. He's going to get a good run. I think he's a very big chance.
Yeah, I've marked him second favourite, Zac, but I would imagine just this race setup is quite nice for you because we'll talk about it a little more later on our podcast with my prices and everything. But where Wellington's drawn and a few of your key dangers at Master 8, etc., and just where you're drawn, it means that it could potentially afford you the opportunity. Kerfany looks the leader, but you can sit handy and probably do not much work. And some of your key rivals are going to be, trying to find their right spot, which over in a race where there's not much between a lot of them is very important.
Yeah, well, last race that he ran in, it was run at quite a strong speed, especially through the mid stages, and it set it up for Wellington. So the race was run perfectly to suit him, whereas this time they've just got to back the speed off, even if it's only half a second around the corner. I know Wellington's got a 5 pound turnaround at the weights with my guy, but I think that might make the difference. It's going to be close.
But you've also got to remember this track. It may not matter because they might be coming down the middle, and that's going to suit this Skyfields and Wellingtons if it is. And we won't know that. Well, I won't know that till after a couple of races anyway, if they're going to be winning down the middle. So those things on the fence may not be suited by race 6 if they're coming 5, 6 deep.
But if you say that, Shane, then why can't Zac go forward and come off in the straight?
He will. He's smart
Spangle?
like that. He did it with the Derby horse. You saw that. He was on the fence. What about, Zac, what about if the fence is no good and Tony says to lead on the fence? What are you going to do?
Do what I did in the Derby.
Yeah, well, you didn't stay on the fence that day, did you?
No, I didn't, but I did find the front and lead the race.
That's right.
Well, you got 1 out of 2 right, eh?
Hey, Zac, are you enjoying the Joe versus Zac battle that we all talk about?
I am. I just feel at the moment like I've been fighting with my hands tied behind my back, obviously trying to get over these injuries that I've had. And unfortunately, most of the stables that I lean on for support have all hit the wall at the same time at the moment. So I'm just going through a little bit of a frustrating period. But if I can just stay in touch with him over the next few weeks and hope that my stables find their form again towards the end of the season, then I might be able to peg him back again. And at the same time, now that I can go out and get treated properly, I think physically I'll get better as well. I think I've been feeling probably about 80%. 80% is normally good enough for me to be able to compete with the other boys. But if I can get to 100%, well, he's going to have to look out.
Yeah, so I think Zac likes to keep it close, keep him in his sights, because he knows if it gets closer, there's not long to go. That
well Joe 106, Zac 104. How do you get on? Do you guys get on well?
Yeah, we get along well enough. We used to sit next to each other at Chartin every Sunday, so I was able to have a good conversation with him there for a long period of time. But because of COVID, he lives off course, so we were separated. We were put in 2 different jockeys' rooms there for a while. And we're still not sitting back together, of course, at the moment. So I don't get to talk to him as much as I normally would. But we get along, as well as I do with the other guys. Yeah.
And you're aware of where he is in a race when it gets towards the pointy end for this jockey championship?
Richo,
you're well aware of where he is?
They're aware of each other. Joe's aware of Zac and Zac's aware of Joe, where they are in the race. Don't worry about that.
Well, you only got to watch Happy Valley on Wednesday night to see how he rode methanes. That'll answer your question.
Don't worry, I watched and I love every minute of it. I think the battle's absolutely fantastic. Any other ride in particular over the weekend that you're excited about?
No doubt Shane's going to question me on something here, but I haven't done the form yet. I normally don't do the form, Richo, until the night before the races or the morning of the races, so it's fresh in my mind, and then I'm not going to forget it. But here we go. Shane's ready.
Wait a sec, I'm having a look.
Here we go.
Star will be hard to beat in race 4. Actually, the horse I told you last start couldn't get beat. Light of Winchai is the horse to beat him. That Chizzy trialled good the other day up in China. He looks so good as action. If Chadwick goes back on him from gate 10 and they're coming down the middle of the track, he's the horse to beat. But you've got a great chance. You'll race a little bit closer from gate 2 because he can. He won't be getting back like he does. And he was going to be very hard to beat.
I remember last time I was riding Light of Hutchi and you told me how to ride him, and I rode him exactly how you said, Shane, and we got the result. I didn't get a well done message after that, but I
know. No, because it was no odds. Because I opened my big mouth and said he couldn't get beat. He started $2.20 when he should have been about $3.50 to $4.
Well, hey, Zac, Shane was waiting for the text message from you saying, thanks, boss, for showing me how to do it.
Yeah,
but
exactly. But Shane is right about Light of Hutchi. He tried really, really well up there on the dirt in Trongfar. And I actually asked Chris, because he asked me to ride that horse in this race as well. I was already booked for Sparky Star, which is also a good ride, as you know. But I asked Chris if he could run Light of Hutchi on the dirt. I think when he runs him on the dirt, he'd be a good chance because, as you know, he can pull a little bit in his races. And as you know, in the dirt, they roll along all the time. So it might just get him off the bit and it could suit him.
Now, Zac, the thing you have got in that race, sorry, Clint, is there's not a lot of speed and it. Circuit Mighty might come across from gate 14, but there actually isn't a lot of pace in that race, just looking at it now. So you're definitely going to be closer than you think. Like, he gets back last sometimes. He won't be back last, not with you on him from gate 2.
Okay.
And one that I wanted to ask you about, Zach, and I was interested that you're riding him because I think he's quite a nice horse, as his record suggests, is Golden Empire. And I know you rode him a few starts back. Royal Myers been on his last couple, but I thought it was a nice setup for him there. He doesn't need to be quite as far back, but he's been pretty good.
Yeah, he's a real sleeper in the mornings. You can't get him to work, actually. He has to follow another horse to make him do something. And he's been a bit like that in his races. He sort of flops out of the gate sometimes and doesn't go unless you make him. So sometimes you need the speed on so that he can get home. And I think when I initially looked at that race, I thought it was quite a tough race. There are a few chances in it. So he's going to need to get all the favours and be at his best.
Oh, Zach, I know you absolutely love a show that we do here in Australia called Get On, and Hutchi does a selection each and every week, and you've declared Beauty Joy to be ridden by Zac Purton.
Yeah, well, he trialled the other day, Zach, and he was withdrawn at his last intended start. Didn't go your way last time, I think, at the Valley, but he looks a nice horse.
He was in a really bad mood last time at the Valley, going to the gates. He was throwing his head around, and he's crossing his legs. He nearly tripped himself over. He was aggressive in the gate, and in the race he kept throwing his head around. He just wasn't happy, and I think he'd missed some work going into that run, and he was just too fresh. And then obviously he was withdrawn at his next run with a bit of a sore foot, but they've changed his work schedule a little bit. They've changed the gear on him, and when I rode him the other day in the barrier trial, he felt like he was back to his old self. He was much more relaxed, and he trialled much better because of that. He got out of the gates well and went through his paces nicely. He wasn't trying to carry on like he had been. So I agree with you, Clint. I think he can bounce back, and we'll see how we go.
Zach, you get him home. We're sending you the white gloves. I'm getting Shane to get some of the. You go to the wardrobe, get the old skin tight pants. It'll be sent DHL straight to your joint. Don't worry about
Zach, you can win on Fun and Glory in race 2. I don't mind his gait because he can race off the pace a bit. He was impressive the other day. He really hit the line.
I gave him a good ride from a bad gate, didn't I?
Yeah, that was good. I liked it. You did. Actually, there's 2 Class 4 1200s tomorrow. The other one, race 1, there's nothing in it. But this race is a strong Class 4. There's a few in there. You know, Leslie, they've got the blinkers on him for the first time. What do you think of him? You've ridden him.
Yeah, I think he's still learning his craft. And that's why they've gone for the blinkers. But I'm not sure it's going to help him. I worked him in a pair of blinkers 6 or 8 weeks ago, and it didn't seem to help him at all. I just think he needs a little bit of time until he comes good, and might need a little bit further. He's a chance, and if they go hard, he could get over the top of them. But I just think he's not quite there yet.
Hey, Shane, I reckon Zach might be the best Australian jockey ever to ride in Hong Kong.
Yeah, well, his record says he is, no doubt. He knocked Douglas White off, and he knocked Joe Moreira off. So anyone that can do that, that's very credible.
That must be listing you as a New Zealander then, is it?
What's that?
Is that listing you as a New Zealander?
Yeah, I'm a Kiwi. I used to ride for New Zealand in the jockey series there.
Yeah, so you should. Hey, Zach, as always, mate, absolute pleasure chatting to you. We're barracking hard for you on a big, big day, mate. I know you're very busy. Thanks for your time. Love to your family too.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Good luck, mate.
Great to have a chat to the one and only Zac Purton. Let's find a stack of winners on Sunday. HutchiesHonkers.com is the place to find full analysis. Subscribe now for what's going to be an amazing day. And trust me, Hutchi has a great record on Group 1 race days. Let's start with the 3 Group 1s. We'll punch through them, Hutch, because we've spoken a lot with Zac Purton about them. Let's start with the QE2 Cup, a field with class throughout, highlighted by Russian Emperor at the top, up against the Derby winner.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure where the market will go here. I've got Romantic Warrior 250 favourite, Russian Emperor second elect, as Shane says. Really a race in 2, but just as a point of reference, Cheerful Days, I'll be having something, and I've got him marked $10. Big price as the rest, but it does look predominantly a 2-horse race.
So Shane, a race in 2.
I got Romantic Warrior from Russian Empire from Savvy 9, who's racing very well. He ran second this day to him. As you can see, he was dominant this day, Russian Empire. He got a lovely run in the race. Blake's riding this horse very, very well at present, and he'll get his chance from gate 5. He might be midfield, but I don't know whether he's going to beat Romantic Warrior.
No, I tend to agree, and I think it was interesting point that Shane brought up earlier. I mean, look, he's got form around Love's Only You, so he's got that mark, Russian Emperor. He'll be right there, but just drawn outside Romantic Warrior, he might be that one pair further back, he's got to probably try to have that last crack at Romantic Warrior. For me, gets the run of the race, and I thought his trial sense was absolutely fantastic. So I'll be happy to be on Romantic Warrior if we can get that price about it.
Yeah, so around 250 versus 270 or 280 was your prices. That's going to be one of the most incredible battles. And the race beforehand, the Champions Mile, will be an incredible battle because Zac Purton sounds so confident on California Spangle, but he's up against a bona fide star in Golden 60.
Yeah, look, Golden. I mean, what our little interview with Zac had been music to Vincent's ears. Shane, I would have thought. I mean, he's the little bit of pressure early. He'll be hoping Blake Shinn does press on a little bit on Healthy Happy and make California Spangle work. The most disappointing part about what Zac said was that Tony wants him to lead and go to the rail, because I thought he could potentially be in a controlling position outside the leader if they wanted to go quick, or he can take it up himself. But if he's going to be committed to going forward and it stretches him out a bit, it'll just play right into Golden 60. It's going to be extremely hard to beat.
Clint, Zac's too good of a jockey to get into a speed tactical race like that. And if he does, he's not as good as I thought he was, because it's just dumb and silly. He'll work it out after 100 metres whether he'll go to the fence and lead or he'll sit outside of him. The one thing I can promise you is they won't be going head-to-head after 200 metres, each of them trying to lead. That will not happen. As you can see, he got a lovely run this day, Golden 60. Now, his sectional for 200 metres is so quick if he's held up a bit. He's going to be held up a bit here and behind. He doesn't have to go back to last. Where he is where he is. There's pace in the race, as we know. He's going to get a lovely run midfield and behind, probably 4th, 5th, maybe 3rd, 4th, 6th, somewhere. Doesn't matter. He'll pop out and he'll just run over top of them. I've got him on top from California Spangle, and more than this is racing quite well, but he doesn't win, but he gets back and he keeps coming. He's not the worst.
It's an interesting race.
If he's $1.30 Golden 60, California Spangle will have to be $4. He'll be hard not to have a bet on.
Oh, look, I will have Golden 60. He will probably be about $1.30, $1.40, I'd imagine, but I'm going to have Golden 60 more like $1.70.
Yeah.
And probably have Golden California Spangle, I should say, more around the 450 to 5, somewhere in that region. But
it'd be hard to resist.
Look, I think it'll be a closer race than what the market has it. He's a very talented horse, California Spangle, and when you've got that running style of being up on the pace, if he gets some cheap sectionals in and he starts to ramp it from the 600 or 700, Golden 60 it need to be the superstar that he is to overhaul him. And even if he does let go, like Shane says, the other horse can take a bit of catching.
Well, I'll be on the computer, refresh, waiting for HutchiesHonkers.com to land.
If Golden 60's within 3 or 4 lengths of him and done no work at the 400 metres, you won't beat Golden 60. Not a hope in the world.
Well, let me give you a price. So $1.30 Golden 60, $4.25 California Spangle. Who are you having a bet on, Shane?
Neither. I'm watching the race.
You just watch.
One's too short, and then you're hoping that things go wrong for him, and everything goes right for the other horse. I want to watch. It's a fantastic spectacle, this race. Be interesting. I've got no doubt in a year's time, California Spangle might be able to turn the corner and beat him. Whether he can now is very debatable, and that's why one's going to be $1.30 and the other will be about $3, $3.50 or something.
Should be worth noting as well, just for people that like a little bit of history, horses that have won or run well on the Derby, you have a pretty good record at, the QE2 meeting in general, the Champions Mile. They generally race well, and we've had worse winners of the Derby be very competitive.
Right.
So expect these guys to be right in it.
Champion Sprint Prize is the third of the Group 1s. It's in race number 6, so we go back to race 6. Little more even here. So what have you got? Wellington as the favourite, $3?
Yeah, $3 Wellington favourite. I think I know Shane will probably like his Barry and the stable will, but for me, he gets a pair further back in the run this time. And I think the big upgrade is Sight Success with Zac. I mean, I'm hoping we can be on him around that sort of 550, 560 mark. Because for me, Zac can really control this race. He can sit outside of Campione and he'll be there with first crack. You heard him speak about him. And the horse that I think, the other runner that I think gets a much better map. Now, I had Super Wealthy short last time he went around. He actually ended up in a spot where I thought Wellington would be, but he should get a much better run here from gate 5. And with only, there's nothing between all of these. I feel that he might be a little bit of an over. We might be able to, he might be $20 or $25 Hong Kong tote Super Wealthy, and I think he's more like a $12 chance. So I'll be having something on him as well.
Clint, we missed the boat this race, and we didn't ask Zac, but he's on Sight Success. Why is he on him and not Joe, where Zac's always been riding lately Hot King Prawn? That's unusual, that jockey switch for this race.
Yeah, it is a little bit unusual. Maybe Zac's got a bit more pull. I mean, Joe was, of course, on Master 8 this day, so they might have had enough of Joe there and given the opportunity to Karras. It looks and reads on paper like maybe there was Zac's asked for the ride and he's got the ride ahead of Joe. I mean, that's what it looks like on
Joe
paper.
didn't ride Master 8 very good that day because he tried to lead and he used him too much early, where the other horse was always going to lead him and he had nothing left at the end of the race. And that's why the last bit he weakened. If he'd come out of the gates and sat third fence, he would have finished the race off looking at it. But he just used him to lead and he couldn't lead and he had to let him go and he pulled a little bit. I'll probably have Wellington. What's that?
I mean, he's had his chance a couple of times, though, missed up Master 8. I mean, mate, you might be right with these excuses, but he's, he doesn't really get a good run here, I didn't think, from the barrier. And
I'm not tipping him. I'm just saying last start when you said there were excuses for his last run, but I'm not tipping him here, not a hope in the world.
Who are you tipping?
I think it's a very open race. Looking at it, I think anything can win. I think Super Wealthy will run a race, whereas last start I didn't. I think he'll be better suited in this than he was last start. I think Wellington and Skyfield will both run well, and these horses are going to be off the pace coming down the middle of the track. But I'm not disagreeing that Sight Success isn't a good chance. He is. But I think it's even stronger. Stronger's going good. His last run, even though he ran last, was still good. There was nothing wrong with his run. He'll run a race. And we haven't mentioned Lucky Patch, who was the informed horse, and he may have won the international race in December if he hadn't fallen. His trials haven't been good since then, and he hasn't had a run, but he was the class runner going into the international sprint, wasn't he, Clint?
Yeah, he certainly was. I'm taking a line against him because he's had that time off. Trials weren't great, and I want to see him. He's drawn out there. I want to see him go around.
So am I. I'm exactly the same. I'm just commenting about the race. This race is very even, and we get a different winner a lot in these races, and I can see it happening there. The roughie of the race, I think, is Super Wealthy, whereas, as I said before, I didn't like him last start. He could run a race the way this race could shape up, but I wouldn't be surprised what won.
A couple of quick ones. The end of the day, race 11.
Yeah, it's a tough race. It's a good race. There's some nice sprinters in the event. Ep6, I think, deserves to be favourite in the race. Great ride from Blake Shinn last start, and I think he's probably the one to beat against some key rivals. I mean, you've got Blaze Warrior, a lot of horses. It's interesting, Shane, this last race. I mean, there's a couple of horses here that are going up in grade with a lighter weight. We mentioned all those stats last week. I mean, Lucky With You was given a poor ride probably last time. Rock Your Heart, though, up in grade. And there's not much between a stack of them. So I'll be having Ep6 as the horse to beat, Shane, but there's a lot of horses that could win that one.
Yeah, the only problem with these lightweights in this race, the bottom 4 or 5, is they're all out of the handicaps by about 3 or 4 pounds. Because this race, I think it's 105 to 80. So they're just out of the handicaps, but they could. I thought Ep6 was very impressive last start. He won very easy. He's trailed up the straight since. He's looked good. He's got a nice gate in 10 where you'll know where the track is. You'll see he looks so good on this day. It's a shame Blake's going because I thought he was hopeless when he arrived, but he's riding really well now. And if he could have just lasted next season, he would have gone up a notch again. You know, he's just improved so much. And this ride's classic. He's so cool. And he looked good and he was impressive. I think Trillion Win can run a race. He's coming down in class and all of his runs this season have been good. And as one of your favourite horses, Clint, Blaze Warrior, gate 2, he might be able to race midfield. He's definitely got a chance.
Yeah, well, he was good in that race. And that day that we saw, it wasn't easy to make ground out wide where Blaze Warrior was. That replay that we showed, he's come out since and won, but he meets Ep6 similarly, but now you've got Joe Moreira in a low barrier. And he hasn't been great out of the barriers last couple, Blaze Warrior, but I think Trillion Win's another one that is very interesting. The blinkers are going on him. He comes out of against the top line sprinters and was 3 wide, no cover in that race, so he had genuine excuses. It's a tough race.
But he only got beat a couple of lengths that day, Clint.
Exactly.
He was right
Huge
in
run
behind them. He's definitely not the worst. Like, I think this season, he had 2 or 3 wins or something and 7 placings total with wins, Like, he's raced well all season.
I would have marked him favourite if he had a drawn better. Alexi Badel from gate 13, I thought he might get posted.
Race number 5, you've already spoken about Beauty Joy, Zach. That's where Zach rides for Tony Cruz. Race 5, number 1. It is a Class 2 race over the mile.
He'll be one of our main bets on the day. Look, he has got top weight. He doesn't need to lead, although I think Zach will be happy to, but you've got All for St. Paul's. Soulmate can go forward. There's a little bit of speed in the race, but he can lead, take the sit. It doesn't matter. This horse is better than I think his opposition. I was really happy with what Zach had to say about him. He said mentally the horse is right. That's about as big a push as you get from Zac Purton, I can tell you. So sometimes it's also reading what riders say in terms of how the horse is going. I know form-wise he's good enough for Shane, and he looks a great chance.
He has. There's a lot of pace in that. My Sugar can lead anything if they want to. He led last start over a mile, but he can lead 12s, 14s. So you got 3 or 4 leaders in the race. 2 interesting runners is Terran Red Sun. He was a Derby chance. He got too far back in the Derby. He still made up ground. He's coming back to a mile. But going into the Derby, he was one of the main chances that most people were talking about. And he ran really well in the 1800. He can run a race. And the bottom one, how do you pronounce that, Richo?
Bourbon
Air. He had a very easy run the other day. He was last the whole way. He made up ground late without being tested too much because he was too far back. He got a bit lost. He got very lost. He was having his first run from New Zealand and he ran second in a Group 1. I think it was the New Zealand Guineas, which is a pretty good form line. He could improve that horse.
Yeah, it's an interesting one you bring up, Shane. One thing, I know you said his late work was great. Did you know he ran the fastest last 200 at the whole meeting and he wasn't really pressured? It was Wagner didn't seem sort of overly aggressive on him. He was a bit wayward through different stages of the race, but it was a lot better run than it sort of looked at on paper.
And he's got gate 2. He might race a bit closer and he's got 118 pounds. He could jump out of the ground. And we all know John's horses, how much they can improve from overseas when he gets some first to second runs. They improve a lot.
Well, your nightclub will be serving a lot of bourbon this weekend, Shane. So Bourbon Air is going to be an easy one for you.
I've got to tell you, Shane, I was up in the Gold Coast and Shane he is Mr. Gold Coast.
He is.
He is Mr. Gold Coast.
He is the Gold Coast. Simple as that. Hey, Beauty Joy.
Great time. Amazing. You've got to get up there. You've got to go around with Shane. He's an exceptional host, and some of the bars and nightclubs, unbelievable.
Is Beauty Joy named after Shane? Is that your best for the weekend?
Beauty Joy will be, I think Romantic Warrior is going to be my best, and then my second best will be Beauty Joy, but I'm very keen on Romantic Warrior.
Shane, have you got a...
Richo, your best would be Blaze Warrior, named after you winning the stall gift, wouldn't it?
I would have thought it'd be race 1, number 7, Miracles.
Miracles. I wouldn't be tipping it. That's for sure. What do I like? Oh, race. We're a bit early, but race 7. But I hate tipping horses that are no odds. Though you're you're on a kick to nothing.
No, just something.
Beauty Mission should run a race. His last 2 runs have been good, and the form out of his last run's very good. He's in race 7. Joe's on in gate 6. He's improving with every run. He doesn't need to improve a lot to win that.
Really looking forward to an unbelievable race day. It's on Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Shane, happy punting on the weekend. Hutchbuster, hutchieshonkers.com is the place to get all the analysis, and we look forward to your company next week.